What's going on YouTube? Now few cars can claim to age as gracefully as the XC90, and honestly it's hard to believe that this is already on its 5th model year. That does however mean it's already time for a refresh. So for 2020, Volvo has taken the time to address some of the few customer complaints, but without messing with the overall very successful package. That's why we're out at Quantrell Volvo today to be some of the first reviewers to check out these updates. And of course, if you're in the market for any new Volvo, be sure to swing by their newly renovated showroom or check them out via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with that all said, let's see if Volvo has managed to make the XC90 even better. So starting things off with the design. It has changed in several ways, but you probably won't notice them right off the bat. The grille, for instance, is the same shape, but the bars in the middle now have a subtle curve to them for this inscription. Now the Momentum has the same look, but with less bright work, and the R design continues to have a black mesh finish. As far as the other updates, the lower fascia has a larger faux vent, which includes this new piece of chrome for the inscription only. Turning to the headlights, these have actually not changed, so they continue to be fully LED and look very nice with a ton of intricate details, including the signature Thor's hammer. As far as the rest of the exterior, nearly nothing has changed on this inscription, except for one very tiny detail. And that's that the piece of chrome that connects the two reflectors is new this year. For the other trims, the R design now uses metallic black accents instead of satin silver, and the Momentum gains integrated exhaust outlets like the other models. And as far as the taillights, every 90 does come with the signature full-length LED lights. So overall, Volvo made a good decision not to mess much with the styling, since this remains a very classy and elegant design. Now turning our attention to the wheels, the updated designs are probably the most noticeable design difference for 2020. What we have here are the optional 21-inch alloys on the inscription, and as far as the other trims, they also get new designs in a wide range of sizes. Heading out to our mirrors, they come standard with the full range of equipment, including heating, power folding, auto dimming, and blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert. And speaking of that, for 2020, rear auto braking is now included with that cross traffic system. Otherwise, the huge number of other safety features carry over this year. So you have standard automatic emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, automatic high beam headlights, lane keeping assist, and even pilot assist, which allows for some semi-autonomous driving. This is undoubtedly the most advanced safety suite in the class to be offered as standard equipment. But anyways, that's it for the exterior updates. So now let's go ahead and get inside the cabin and see what's changed there. So walking up to the refreshed XC90, you'll continue to find Volvo's smart entry system standard across the board, as well as probably the nicest key fob in the entire auto industry. You do have this beautiful leather wrapped key fob, and this does match with the interior color, so it's definitely a really nice and unique touch. Now as far as remote start, you cannot do that from this fob, however you can do that from the Volvo On Call app, and that's going to be complimentary for 4 years. Now as far as getting inside the vehicle itself, there's a sensor behind the handle, so all you gotta do is grab it, and your power mirrors will also come out. Alright, so taking a peek inside the 2020 XC90. As you can tell, the interior is still stunning. but it's not actually a huge departure from what the 2019 model offered. The changes actually have a lot more to do with the materials than the actual design itself. So as far as those changes, what you're looking at is on the Momentum a new black ash wood option. On the R design, you now have full Nappa leather seats instead of the previous half nubuck and half Nappa leather seating. And then the Inscription also has Nappa leather seating, but now we have an option of a wool fabric blend seating, which definitely makes for a really unique look and definitely matches with the kind of the fun and funky Swedish mindset. And then as far as your colors, we don't actually have full information for 2020, but we believe they'll be the same colors as offered last year. So that would be charcoal, amber, blonde, or this maroon color. Now turning over here to your door trim, it is absolutely beautiful. So as you can see, you've got some of this maroon leather all through this part where you'll touch. Above that, you've got this open pore walnut trim. And then if you go for the Inscription or the R design, you have the tailored dashboard, which goes across the door trim with real leather, as well as, of course, across the dashboard. As far as your memory seats here, this is standard equipment on every 90. And then, of course, all 4 of your windows are one-touch automatic. Now heading down here to your seats, you do start off with a 10-way power adjusting seat across all the models. But when we go for the Inscription model, you're going to add a power thigh extension as well as power adjusting bolsters. Now massaging is also available as an extra cost option, which we don't have. Now like I was saying, this is the real Nappa leather seating, and it feels absolutely wonderful. Really soft and supple leather. In addition to the fact that Volvo makes some of the most beautiful designed seats in the industry. It's got that really kind of crafted looking design to it that kind of contours to your body, so it both feels nice and looks really nice. So like I already said, Volvo really did not change the main part of the design in here for 2020, and honestly it did not need it at all. So you do continue to have the same type of materials. Like I already mentioned, your top 2 trims are going to come with this tailored dashboard, which covers the whole thing in leather with a nice stitching detail, and that does also continue down here below that. On this model we have the open pore walnut. You would have aluminum on the R design, and there are several different other types of wood you can choose from. And then as we move down below that, we have a big piece of real Nappa leather that runs all through here, as well as up here on the armrest for your knee to rest against. And then we do have more generous use of this real open pore wood. So overall, materials in this car continue to be some of the best you can get in the entire auto industry. Now in the unique Volvo fashion, you don't have a push button start. Instead, you have this little metal toggle here to turn. And when you do turn it, you will notice the standard 9-inch Sensus display fire up. This, of course, is standard across the board. Now what you're looking at here is one of your 2020 changes. Not in the 12.3-inch display itself, but the fact that it's now standard on every XC90, and as a matter of fact, it'll be standard on every 2020 Volvo no matter what. This does have the same features as it always has. It's fully reconfigurable, so you can change out the stuff here in the center, and you can also pop up like a little menu here with your trip information. Now if you want to change this design, what you got to do is just go into your settings over here on the main display. You can go here to driver display, and then you can change, basically right now we have it as the map, but you can change it to show your current media and stuff like that. And as you can see, it does resize depending on what you select. Now to go along with that, our model also comes with a head-up display. This is optional on all the models via the advanced package. Now coming back to the steering wheel, of course you do have electric power assisted steering, and all models do come with a nice leather wrapped steering wheel. On this particular model, this is one color, but you can actually get the two-toned where the outside edge is a different color than the inside. Of course, we do have standard adaptive cruise control right here, and then on this side you've got some controls for your multi-function display. Up top here you will find rain sensing wipers. They are standard across the board. And then the steering wheel is always manually adjusting, and heating is available as a standalone option. Now, of course, beyond being extremely luxurious, this is still a family crossover, so storage is very important. And the XC90 does have you covered. So we'll start out with our center console here. As you can see, this is a very nice size, definitely a good deal larger than in the Q7, which we've been in a few months ago. You will also find two of your USB ports located inside of here. Then up in the front, slide that back this piece of wood here, you'll notice two of your cup holders, another small storage area, and a 12-volt outlet. And then you've got another little storage area right there where you can stick something small. Now, as far as your shifter, unlike the XC40 we were in just a couple days ago, the 90 does stick with a traditional physical shifter unless you go for the T8 model, and then that's going to get the crystal electronic shifter. But as far as this one, it is super simple. You're just going to pull back for drive. You can bump over here to the left to shift manually, but paddle shifters are going to be reserved for the R design only. Heading into reverse, of course, you will find a standard backup camera across all the models. It does default to our traditional view. However, on this model with the advanced package, we also have the 360-degree view, so we'll just tap that. And as you can see, it gives you a really, really nice 360-degree view of the parking spot. It also takes up almost the entire 9 inches, which is definitely very nice. And you can select individual cameras if you want to see just that area to make sure you don't hit the curb or something like that. Also, to go along with that, automatic parking is in this advanced package as well. And then back behind the shifter, you do have an electronic parking brake as well as a brake hold feature. Now, this little metal roller here, this is your drive mode selector, so you push down on it and then you can slide to go through your 4 different drive modes. So you have comfort, dynamic, off-road, as well as eco. And we'll talk about those a little later in the video. Alright, so now that brings us up here to our audio. Now there are 3 different options. Only your Momentum is going to come standard with a 10-speaker audio system. However, all the rest of the trims, they come standard with the branded system, the Harman Kardon Premium Audio System, which is what we have. Let's go ahead and take a sample. Sound quality of this system is extremely impressive. Now, I have been in a model before with the Bowers & Wilkins system. That's 1400 watts and 19 speakers, available as a $3,200 option. It's amazing, of course, but considering how good this system is, unless you're really an audiophile, it's totally unnecessary. Alright, so now we're up here to our main display. Of course, if you know anything about Volvos, most of the functions of the car are located here in the display, and that does include your climate controls. Now, they line down here at the bottom, no matter what screen you're on, so all you've got to do is just kind of select what you want to change, and it'll pop up a display. So this is our driver's temperature adjustment, and we just slide up and down to change that. You can also select this right here. This is where you'll make your zone selections as well as your fan speed. And then you can swipe over to our rear climate, and you can adjust the temperature for both the second and third rows. You'll also notice the little seat here. This is where you'll access the controls for the seat ventilation, seat heating, as well as the heated steering wheel. The 3-stage seat heating, that's included standard across the board. And new for 2020, the 3-stage seat ventilation is now included standard on our design and Inscription. Alright, so now that brings us to our Sensus system. So let's go ahead and take a quick look around. So the Sensus system was upgraded last year with new hardware to make it run faster, as well as some new features to have both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. As such, there's no upgrades to report for 2020, so this does continue to be the same Sensus system that you're used to. Obviously, it is oriented differently than most car systems, so it's kind of like an iPad or a tablet, and you just expand these little tabs here to see different types of information on it. Now, what you're looking at here is our standard navigation. It does come on every model, and it pops up in this tab where you can press this button here to make it take up the entire display. You do have your traditional phone options, and like I already mentioned, you've got both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as standard equipment across every XC90. Then if you want to get to any of your other applications, you just swipe over to the right for these applications. Then over here on this side is your vehicle settings, and then you can change various other settings by swiping down and hitting the settings button. But that's pretty much the main features of the Volvo Sensus system. However, we have a really detailed tech out video available if you want to learn more about it. A link to that video is going to be in the description. Heading on up here, we do have a standard frameless glass auto-dimming mirror with the built-in 3 HomeLink universal remotes as well as a compass. Now, one of my favorite standard features on every XC90 is this really large and really nice panoramic moonroof. As you can see, this goes all the way back behind the second row headrest. And of course, as you'd expect, the front portion does open up and slide just like usual to give you plenty of open air space. And we do have a wind buffer as well. But overall, I really just can't say enough positive things about this cabin. You know, it hasn't changed that much for 2020, but like I said earlier, it just didn't need to. This cabin has been stunning from the time it came out till right now, and this continues to be one of my favorite cabins across the entire auto industry. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and hand it off to Mason, who will talk about the important changes in the back areas. Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and discuss the rear seat of the 2020 Volvo XC90. Now you are going to continue to find a good amount of space for 2020, so you will find 37 inches of rear legroom and 39 inches of rear headroom, which does place it a little bit behind the Audi Q7, but on par with the Acura MDX. Now turning over to the door trim itself, in typical Volvo fashion, this is a beautiful, beautiful door trim. So we do have a leather padding going all the way through here. It's leather above that. And you even have a nice leather tailored upper portion on the Inscription model, accented with some beautiful wood trim. Now in addition to that, on the Inscription, you will also find a standard window sunshade. And down below that, you do have some bottle storage. Now turning over to the seat itself, like I mentioned, this is one of the biggest change areas for the 2020 Volvo XC90, and that is now that you can get captain's chairs on this model. So this was an area that a lot of consumers complained about. They wanted captain chairs, and they are available on the Momentum and Inscription trims in the T6 and T8 engine combos. Now, of course, the seat itself on this model is a beautiful design as well. It's very comfortable, and it does also slide and recline. Now here in the center area, Volvo didn't change much, but they didn't need to because there is plenty of features back here to keep your family happy. Now, as you can see, the car is not on, so you can't really see all this stuff, but if you hit this button, it would unlock the climate controls, and you have your different fan speeds that you can adjust, and both rear passengers back here can adjust their temperature since it is 4-zone automatic.
Now in addition to that, you can also kind of see that we do have 3-stage heated rear seats, which are optional with the heated steering wheel in the front. Now down below that, you do have some vents here in the center and also on the B-pillar. And down below that, you do have a 12-volt power outlet. However, Volvo still has not added any charging USB ports for 2020. Now turning to the center armrest here, it does fold down. You do have some more cup holders inside. And continuing on, we do have a bolster seat. Since Volvo is very family friendly, this is actually an integrated bolster seat that can pop up and latch into place. And up top on the side, you do have some LED lighting, gently fades in, as well as a nice assist grip here. And I do want to point out that this can be leather wrapped if you opt for that luxury package. Now as far as how the rear legroom goes, like I mentioned, this is pretty class competitive. So behind Drew's position, I have about 8 to 9 inches of rear legroom, and my feet definitely do not have any issues sliding up under the seat. So definitely all of your family members are going to be happy here in the second row. Now if you didn't option for the Captain's Chair XC90 like this model, Volvo still has made it pretty easy to get into the third row. So all you have to do is locate this little lever behind the seat, push it forward, and the seat will slide out of the way. Now once you do that, checking out the third row seats, you are going to find 31.9 inches of rear legroom and 36 inches of rear headroom, which does best a lot in the class like the Audi Q7. So now let's go ahead and get back there and see what it's like. Alright, so sitting back here, my first impression is actually really good. I have about 1 inch of legroom, which is about all you can expect, and that is with the seat scooted all the way back. Now in addition to that, my feet do have a spot to slide up underneath the seat. It is a little bit crammed, but not too bad overall. And more impressively, I do have plenty of thigh support. So it looks like Volvo has actually kind of inclined the seats here to give us more thigh support, which is definitely appreciated. And in addition to that, we do have a cup holder, as well as a little storage compartment, your own vents, and lights up top. Sliding the seat back into place is actually quite easy. Now heading around to the trunk of the XC90, surprisingly Volvo has made it power and hands-free standard across all 3 trims of the 90. So just wave your foot under the bumper to open it. And once you do, inside the trunk you are going to find a class-leading amount of space. Behind the third row seats you are going to find 16 cubic feet. If you fold the third row it's going to be 42 cubic feet, and if you fold all of the seats it's going to expand to 86 cubic feet. Now like I mentioned, that is a class-leading figure, so that is above the Audi Q7 and Acura MDX. Now as far as how Volvo finished it back here, they did do a great job. So you do have some LED lighting, and off to this side you do have a 12-volt power outlet, as well as a little storage cubby. Now underneath the floor here, we do have a spare tire. And in order to fold the third row seats, all you have to do is grab this little handle, and it does electrically fold the headrest as well. And it does make a nice flat loading floor. However, I do want to point out something, and that is that Volvo has not included a power folding third row, which a lot of the rivals do. And there's not even a strap back here to pull the seat back up, so it's actually really difficult to get this third row seat back up once it's folded. Now coming over to the passenger seat, it is the same as the driver's, so 10-way power adjusting with 4-way power lumbar support. And in addition to that, you do also have 3-person memory seats for the passenger side, and that is standard across all 3 trims. Now in front of the passenger, you do have really nice materials, and down below in the glove box, all you have to do to release it is locate this little button. It does electrically release, and inside you're going to find a really good amount of space, and it is very, very nicely felt lined. Now up top, we do have a sun visor with an LED light and mirror, and it does also detach, however it does not extend. But anyway, guys, that sums up all the practical stuff about the XC90. So now let's go ahead and get on the road and see how it performs out there.
Alright, so for the powertrains, there actually has been some changes for 2020. Of course, this does have a pretty unique arrangement like the other Volvos, where you have kind of the same engine but with different levels of boost. Before I get into the specs, I do want to first mention, you may have heard about these new B hybrid models. Those are going to be in Europe, but they're not coming to the United States at this time. They may come, of course, later on, but we don't have any information about those, of course. Now, getting into the actual engine specs, though. So you've got the T5, T6, and T8. The T5 is your base engine. That's a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, 250 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, the same as last year. You also have the T6 that adds a supercharger to the turbo 4-cylinder. That makes 310 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, also the same as last year. Where the change comes in is your T8 model. That's the plug-in hybrid technology is being added to the turbo and supercharged 4-cylinder engine. That's got a new battery pack for 2020 as well as advanced brake recharging, and it's going to deliver 15% more power. Now the total is 420 horsepower, which is pretty impressive.
A lot of power for an SUV.
As far as 0 to 60 times, they drop by a second each. So you start at 7.5 for the T5, 6.1 for the T6, and then 5.3 for the T8 model. Regardless of what engine you choose, you're going to have an 8-speed automatic transmission. And most of the models have standard all-wheel drive, but the T5 model does come standard with front-wheel drive. Finally, we only have fuel economy ratings for T5 and T6 models because the T8 is going to come out a little bit later. But those models is going to be rated at 21 city, 30 highway, 25 combined for the front-wheel drive T5. And then the T6 model, which is all-wheel drive only, is 18, 26, 21 combined. But anyways, that is pretty much it for the specs, so let's go ahead and take it out on the road. Alright, so that was our first takeoff in the 2020 XC90. This is the T6, like I already mentioned. It feels pretty powerful. I think most people end up going for the T6.
Yeah.
As far as what people go for, there is that lower tier available if you want to save a few bucks or whatever. But this to me feels really good. This is the type of acceleration I expect from a luxury crossover, so I would definitely say go for the T6. I think, like I said, most people do anyways.
And by the time you add the all-wheel drive system to the T5, it's probably not going to be too much of a price difference.
Now, as far as what drive mode we're in the comfort mode currently. This, of course, is the Inscription. It's also the more comfort and luxury-minded of the trim levels. So if you go for the R design, that of course is going to give you more sporty suspension, different various things tuned to be a little bit more sporty. But of course, this one here is really focused on luxury. So that does mean we do have really light steering, but very accurate. And as you can see, it's actually very fast. It is just very light feeling. You also probably have a little bit more body roll than in some of your German rivals, as well as, like I said, the R design.
You know, but that does pay off in terms of ride quality. You know, just riding here, this is a super duper rough road. And I mean, there you really can't feel much of anything into the cabin. It's very quiet. Like, I mean, we're barely whispering, and, you know, we can hear each other perfectly fine. And, you know, it's just a very luxurious place to spend time in here. I'm very impressed with this engine, you know, especially out of a 4-cylinder and something that this
Right, it's a tiny
gigantic
4-cylinder in a 3-row crossover. It's like, wow, I mean, are you really going to do this? But
it does.
you know, because when they first announced this way back several years ago, you know, it was like, it seemed like a weird decision, let's just say that. But when you actually get in these recent Volvos and see them in practice, it really does do a great job. Now that was our auto start stop system. It was just engaged, and it restarts extremely smoothly and very, very quickly.
It's definitely one of the smoother auto start stops
I didn't
in the
feel
class.
a thing inside any intrusion or startup rumble in the steering wheel or anyplace else. I just went ahead and put it in dynamic mode so we can try out a different system. You will notice one thing when I put it in dynamic mode, that disabled the auto start stop right then and there.
Yeah. Just sitting here at a red light, I do kind of want to go ahead and touch back again on just how comfortable and nice this cabin is. You know, we're sitting here at a red light on this super busy road, and I just feel really, really isolated from everything else. You know, there's cars flying by on both sides of the road, and you just feel very isolated and comfortable, and there's tons of space for you and all of your family. And, you know, I can't even feel the engine running. It's really just a very pleasant and very luxurious experience.
The seats.
Oh gosh, yes.
Nobody
Love
does
these
seats like
seats.
Volvo does. I mean, they look like they've got that contoured look, and it just feels
It does
fantastic.
contour. It feels
matches
great.
just your body. It's so soft. The leather quality is fantastic, and you can adjust it any way that you need it to adjust. Definitely has a very nice and responsive feel. In the dynamic mode, I didn't notice a ton of difference as far as the acceleration, but you can tell the throttle response is better, and also you're letting in a little bit more noise.
Yeah.
This engine kind of has a cool sound to it, being both turbocharged and supercharged. You've got different types of noises and stuff. It's very interesting. It has a lot of character, but of course when you're in the comfort mode, it is very hushed, so you can kind of choose if you do or don't want to hear the engine sounds. I'm also noticing now that turning, the steering has been tightened up quite a bit now that I'm in dynamic mode, which I definitely appreciate. Me being a car enthusiast, I like to have a little bit of a tighter steering, and when you're in the comfort mode, it has very light steering, like most of the Volvos do, being luxury minded. So having it being tightened down a bit once you get into dynamic mode is very nice. Up until this point, I do think I failed to mention the 8-speed automatic transmission. And that's a testament to the transmission. It operates pretty much transparently. You don't notice it much, and just kind of operates in the background. The shifts are a little bit more aggressive in the dynamic mode, though. But overall, Volvo has definitely done a really good job with the driving experience here in the XC90. This is a flagship crossover, and it has a driving experience of a flagship vehicle. It is quiet, it's smooth, and it's comfortable, which is the most important characteristics of a family luxury crossover. And all that combined with the really nice styling on the outside and the always super luxurious cabin really just make for a great overall experience.
And I'm sure you're wondering by now that you've seen how great this car is, how much it's going to cost you to get in the XC90. Now, the good news is that it's pretty class competitive, so for the very base T5 Momentum front-wheel drive, we're going to start at $48,350. Now, if you want to go up to the T5 R-Design all-wheel drive, that's going to come in at $56,100, and those are the base models for those trim levels. You can get the T5 on the Momentum and the R-Design. Now, if you want to go for the fully loaded Inscription model, that is T6 only, and T8, of course, you can get the higher end model. But the base price for the Inscription is going to be $62,600. Now, as far as how this particular model is equipped, we have opted for the T6 all-wheel drive Inscription, and we do have several option packages added onto that. We have the Advanced package for $2,450, heated rear seats and steering wheel for $750, the beautiful white paint for $645, Protection Package Premier for $665, the integrated booster seat in the back for $300, 21-inch alloy wheels for $800, as well as the destination charge for $995. So the total for this particular model as equipped comes in at $69,205, which, like I mentioned before, is very class competitive. It does kind of depend on what you compare it against. If you're comparing it to the MDX, it is going to be more expensive, but if you're comparing it to the German rivals like the BMW X7 and Mercedes GLS, this is going to be significantly cheaper, and you are getting pretty much all of the same stuff. Well, guys, we've enjoyed watching the first in-depth look at the 2020 Volvo XC90 Inscription. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.